Alrighty, Ben here from the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to the World Cup warm-up. The World Cup is coming, the Blood Bowl World Cup is coming, the NAF World Cup is coming. It's coming up in September in Alicante in Spain. Now, we've known this for a while. We've known the rules set for a while. We've talked about it a bunch of times on the podcast. We've talked about how excited we are for the World Cup. But World Cup registration has just opened, which means it is time for the official Bonehead podcast World Cup warm-up to start. So what we're going to talk about today is what's going to be upcoming from the podcast, and we're going to do a little bit of a primer on the rosters so that we don't have to do it for every single team video, because we are going to be doing not just live playtest games, checking out different teams' rosters. We're going to put it out to you guys to see what teams you want us to play, what rosters you want us to try out. Ben, Trips, me, Ian, we're going to set up a bunch of live games over the course of the next few months to get the World Cup rule set out there, to get those reps in on some of the best rosters for this format. And the second thing we're going to be doing, in the same vein as the Sevens rosters and the tournament rosters, we are going to hit up a short video, probably 15 minutes like the rest of them, for every Blood Bowl team available, looking at and using the World Cup rule set. We are so excited to be able to play in a new format. This is a really great opportunity for us to kind of refresh where each team is. And using the World Cup rule set, I think we're going to get a lot of playtesters out there able to weigh in on the videos to say, actually, this is good, this would be better, to kind of work as a massive Bonehead podcast team to kind of brew up some of the best rosters. Now, the first World Cup warm-up game is going to be next Tuesday night. It's Ben's birthday on Monday, so we're going to do a kind of mini Blood Tithe Ben's birthday stream on the Tuesday night. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be playing a two-team matchup using the World Cup rule set. Now, it's probably going to be Ben's Chaos Dwarves against a roster that I haven't quite decided on yet. But yeah, potentially Skaven. What we'll do is we'll put a poll out this weekend, and get your guys' views on what team you want us to run based on the teams I've got ready and that aren't in storage. I'm thinking Skaven, I'm thinking Lizardmen, and I'm sure we can rustle up a couple of other teams that you guys think would be worth trying out in the World Cup rosters. So, World Cup, we're super excited for it. We're going to be looking at all the teams. Now, rather than us go through the build for every single tier every single time, what we'll do in the video is we'll go, hi, this is the Chaos Dwarf roster. Chaos Dwarves are tier blah. These are the packages that they get. And then we'll present what we think is the best package for each, the best roster for each of those packages. So what we're going to do now is just have a quick refresh on the NAF World Cup rule sets so that we can start brewing up those ideas right now. Okay, so this is the NAF World Cup document, and it's available on the NAF website. I'll put it in the link below so it's nice and easy to find, and we are just going to brew up through it and have a look at the most important things. So all the details of the World Cup are in there, the scoring and all that kind of goodness is all available there. We're not interested in that right now. What we're interested in is basically page 1 and page 2, or at least page 2 and page 3, which are the team build rules. So we're going to summarize this really, really quickly. There are squads. When you build a squad, only one team can be present in that squad, and only one star player can be present in that squad as well. So I can run Dwarves, and Trips could run OWA, but only one of us could take Griff, and we couldn't both run OWA. Although at the moment, there's a tournament going on in Portsmouth where OWA are top tabling versus each other, so OWA are definitely coming back from ignominy and have been performing pretty nicely over the last few months. So, I don't know, maybe there's some cheeky brews there. Right, the team rosters are 11. No, they're not. They're 1150, 1.150. So 1,150,000 gold pieces to build your team. That's players and stars and rerolls and inducements that are eligible. Everything goes in there, which is kind of standard for a tournament. It's a little bit more than we use, but only by a smidgen. Most tournaments are running 1150, so this fits really nicely. Everything goes in there, rerolls, absolutely everything. It's resurrection, etc, etc. You've got to have 11 players before you have stars, because that's the rules of Blood Bowl. Looking at you, Sandbowl, you crazy people. Star players can't be given extra skills, which we knew that. So let's have a look at tiers and skills. So before we look at the minutiae of what each tier gets, the overarch is that each team is permitted to stack 2 primary skills on 1 player on your team. So there's going to be no skill stacking except for once, and if you want to stack a primary on a player, that primary basically counts as a double. So you can stack 2 primary skills on a maximum of 1 player at the cost of both 1 primary and 1 secondary skill. If your team and skill set do not allow you to give secondary skills to your players, you are not allowed to stack skills. So what does that mean? As we go through this tier list, this kind of menu of builds, basically, of pieces that you can build your team out of, we're going to see that only the ones that have a secondary skill will even be able to stack it. And you won't be able to stack that secondary skill on a player. So it is going to be basically just two general skills. Now, what that means is that you're kind of looking for players with good skill access if you even want to stack. This is not a massive skill tournament, which is potentially the right thing, given that there's going to be 2,000 plus Blood Bowlers here from all around the world, speaking all sorts of languages. So keeping a roster kind of relatively simple is a great idea. There's going to be some drinking involved, and there's going to be some difficulties in communication. Plus, you're playing the same roster for 9 games. So keeping your roster kind of simple allows you to focus mostly on the game and trying to communicate to your opponent what you're trying to do. So we will begin. Each of these tiers has 3 options, which is pretty cool. Now, when it comes to star players, you can only take a star player if you take one of these skill options, but also some of the star players will have an additional tax, a skill tax. So if you want to take Morgan Thorg, it's going to cost you 3 primary skills. If you want to take Griff, it's going to cost you 3 primary skills. So as we're looking through these tier lists, you have to choose a tier list that allows you to take a star, and then some of those stars are going to tax you additional skills. So tier 1 here, if you wanted to take a star player on a dwarf team, you would take selection C, 3 primary and 1 star player. And if you wanted to take Griff, it would cost you 3 primary skills. So you'd end up with no skills, but you'd have Griff, which is probably enough. So that's how the roster's built. It's very similar to what Games Workshop released in their match play guide. That bit's a bit simpler, but this is really not that complex once you get your head around it. And that's why we're kind of having a primer on it right now, is because we don't want to do this every single video. What we want to do is hit it up and be like, right, tier 1, 3 options, 6 primary, 4 primary and a secondary, and 3 primary and a star player. Is there any star player you think that is available to these teams, that are needed by these teams, that are worth giving up the cash to pay for the star player and any star player tax? That's additional star player tax. Because if you think about it, you've got 6 primary in option A, 3 primary in option C to allow a star player, and if you took Griff, he's basically costing you 6 skills. So I think it's very likely that we're either going to see rosters that are all in on a star player, which is very achievable, and with the star players in the game right now, it's still powerful. But it is a huge amount of skills to give up, and those players that are going to the World Cup kind of going to be leveraging the advantage of having a full 1150 team and 6, 7, 8 skills, potentially more so than no skills and 1 superstar player. But it can be fun to just run Hackflame, just run Griff and see what happens. So tier 1, 6 primary skills or 4 primary and a double, remembering that double skill, that secondary skill, can be used to stack a primary skill instead. So you can have 2 primaries on 1 player. So that's reasonable. And 3 primaries and a star player if you want to take a star player. We've got Chaos Dwarves, Dark Elves, Dwarves, Human, Lizardmen, Orcs, Undead, and Wood Elves in tier 1. Now, Orcs have been performing well, they're a solid team, and they've got good access to star players. That isn't going to help them necessarily in this format, because when you build an Orc roster at a standard tournament, you can just take Bomber for 50k, you've got a pretty good roster at 1 million, so anything more than that, you just chuck it on rerolls. Maybe you take a Troll, definitely take Bomber, and then you just leveled up to get you that extra bit. Chaos Dwarves, you've got the option of Hackflem. That's going to take that's going to take all of your skill points, basically. Dark Elves, rubbish star player access, generally speaking. You could sneak Glorial in there, but it's going to cost you 150k for her, plus all 3 of your stars. Three of your 6 star players skills. You got Dwarves, Humans, Lizards, Orcs, Undead, Wood Elves. Undead, again, not a huge amount of star player access that you'd want. it would all be Cheney. And as you kind of roll through here and have a look at Cheney, he is going to cost you an extra primary skill. So if you wanted to run Undead with Wilhelm Cheney, you'd only get 2 primary skills. You'd have to take option 3, which gives you 3 skills and a star player. You take Cheney, you also lose another skill, so that gives you 2 skills. Now, that's not bad. Cheney's cheap enough that you can build a decent Undead roster at 1150 around him. And with 2 skills, you could potentially, I don't know, put a couple of blodging ghouls or something like that, a couple of guard mummies to kind of strengthen up your line. It's not terrible. It's a huge tax. 4 skills is a huge tax, but it might give you the edge that you need for like the Undead team. Lizards, no stars that they're going to want to take particularly. I guess what will happen is at 1150 you could potentially look at squeezing in Zolcath to be an upgrade for the Croxagore or Glottal Stop, but I don't think you can afford it at 1150. I think you're just going to be just as inconsistent and you're just paying through it. You kind of want to take those rerolls and make sure that you've got a bench or basically just your full assortment of players for Lizards. So out of these teams, there's a gimmicky Griff build in Dwarves and Humans, absolutely. You've got a Cheney build in Undead. You could probably cheese a Chaos Dwarf Hackflem roster in there, but again, you are giving up literally every one of your skills. Wood Elves don't really need any stars. At 1150, they kind of want to take all of those skills. You don't even want to double on that one. So tier 1 is going to be, it's going to be reasonably power capped, which is exactly the goal of this roster. So tier 2 is a little bit better than that. A is 7 primary, B is 5 primary and a secondary skill, so basically 1 more skill, or 4 primaries and a star player. Again, 1 more skill. Amazons, Elven Union, High Elves, Necro Horror, Norse, Skaven, Slann, Underworld. So Skaven, Underworld, if you wanted to run a Hackflem roster there, you'd actually get one skill. You'd still have 1 skill. Elven Union, High Elves, again, you might be able to take Glorial in there and just try and leave it all on the pitch when throwing the ball around. You know, Elven Union with 4 skills is all right. Elven Union with 7 skills might be even better, and High Elves have been performing brilliantly. Necro Horror being able to take Cheney and still have 3 skills is definitely worth considering, but I mean, that's 7 skills there, or even 5 skills in a secondary, so you could, in theory, take those 5 skills and your secondary, use your secondary to double up and give your werewolf blodge or something like that, which is definitely worth considering. Now, Amazons are interesting because the new star players that are just, well, 2023's versions of star players, so all the ones from the Amazon book and all the ones from the Almanac, are not allowed. In fact, any team release will be not allowed for the World Cup. So everything we've got, or we had in November last year, is what the World Cup will feature. So you won't have to see Frog Lady. I mentioned Glottal Stop, but you're not getting him either. And Boa is not going to feature here either. So Amazons, it's fine. The Amazon roster's awesome, and quite frankly, being able to take 7 skills on Amazons at tier 2 is going to be brilliant. You know, they're not as one-tracked as they used to be, but now you've got strength 7 pieces who... strength 4 pieces that... with 7 skills, you can go, you know, blodge, 2 blitzers, potentially blodge, and it gives you 3 spare skills, where you could even sneak a leader reroll in there if you wanted to. You will be able to afford plenty, so you probably want to just put block on that girl. It's not the most exciting of rosters, but Amazons could be really fun too. Missing the star player edge, the roster is a bit boring. It is capped basically at $1 million. You get everything you want. So at 1150 allows you to take that Apo to keep your skilled players alive, and a couple of extra rerolls potentially, or assistant coaches to just really kind of win the kickoff role. I think Amazon roster in this format is looking at 13 players, full 7 skills. You could take a secondary and double to downgrade a skill if you wanted to, but I mean, I don't know. Depends how you want to play them. Elven Union High Elves, fine. Necro, yeah, fine. Norse, an interesting one. You'll see a lot of Norse Ivan, and you can definitely kind of Norse Griffith, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be enough. I think the 7 primaries on a skill like on a team like Norse are going to be absolutely brilliant. There's a bunch of great things you want to do with those rosters. So tier 2 is similar to tier 1, although it gives you options. Then you've got tier 3 and tier 4, which are the traditional tier 2 teams in most tournaments. Black Orcs, Chaos Chosen, Imperial Nobility, Khorne, Nurgle, and Tomb Kings. They get 7 and a secondary, 5 and 2 secondaries. Now you kind of get open to the point where 2 of your players can have stacked skills. That's where it starts getting really quite juicy. Or 5 primaries and a star player. Tomb Kings, you can have Cheney and 4 skills now. The problem is with Tomb Kings that actually being able to take 7 skills plus a stacked one, or a double, whichever one you'd want to do, that becomes really tasty. That's basically 8 skills for your Tomb Kings roster. That's quite a lot of guard or mighty blow. And you've got that secondary, 5 primary, you've got block on 2 of your big guys. And it starts to get really, really cool. Chaos Chosen there, if you want to take a big guy for that, so Minotaur or something like that, you can chuck block on your piece. And Black Orcs, they love skills. They don't need very many of them to get really quite fun. So again, being able to take 7 or 8 skills on your team is pretty awesome. Now they do also have the fact that at 5 primary skills you can take 5 primaries and a regular star player, so there might be options. I've just realized that Scrapper Sorehead is not going to be eligible for this tournament. I think he would be a real nice boon for those guys. Chaos Renegades, OWA, and Vampires here are sitting at tier 4. Now this is where I think there's some ground to be made up. Renegades are awesome, and with 8 primaries for option A and a secondary, 6 primaries and 2 secondaries, right? So now we're looking at the block Ogre, the block Minotaur, and 6 skills across the rest of my team. Chaos Renegades are looking pretty good, or 6 primary and a star player. The difficulty is that all the good star players come with additional skill taxes, but there is definitely going to be some edge cases where we find some useful other players to put into these rosters. Again, OWA doing brilliantly at the moment. The fact that they've got that 8 primaries and a secondary means that they can put block on their big guy, whichever route they go. By the way, it's ogres, or they can just take the 6 skills with a star player, so you get even more options at that point. But OWA there with 9 skills, Chaos Renegades with 9 skills, that's some serious tier boosting for those teams. So very excited to delve into those rosters, as well as Vampires. Now Vampires are one of the teams that massively benefit from rule sets that have stacking, especially free stacking. This kind of stacking cap using secondary skills only means that you're not going to have souped up vampire teams. 6 primary plus 2 stacked skills is going to give you a whole bunch of pro vampires and a couple with block as well. So it is going to be able to fill your team out. At 1150, you're going to be able to afford all the thralls you want and probably a full lineup of 6 vamps. So vamps at this roster level, I think, are going to be very competitive. And again, you're not going to see a massive amount of star players, so you don't have to worry about the kind of bomb card. They can't play. If you've got Hackflem, you've got nothing else, so all you have to do is take out Hackflem, and then basically you're playing against a vanilla 1 million team most of the time, which is awesome. So definitely look for tackle to be one of the most important skills in all of this tournament, because if your opponent does bring a superstar star, taking them out is just going to be absolutely wonderful. And then you've got tier 5, which is always the most fun in Blood Bowl. We've got halflings, goblins, ogres, and snotlings. 8 primary, 2 secondary, 6 primary and 3 secondary, 6 primary and a star player, or 4 primary and 2 star players. So they get the 4th option here, A, B, C, or D, which allows them to kind of go half and half and take 6 primary with a star player, which would be great, except kind of your standard star players are looking like getting taxed. So this is probably the most important point for us to take a look at that star player list. Morg, 3 skills. Griff, 3 skills. Deeproot, Hackflem, Rust Gouger, 2 skills. Okay, I was wrong about Hackflem, actually. You can sneak Hackflem in there with 1 extra primary, which makes him more takeable. Creek, big boy. Deeproot, 2 primary skill tax for the OWA team. Actually, is a pretty solid roster. Bomber Dribble Snot, 2 primary skills, again makes him takeable, and Wilhelm Chaney with 1 primary. So if you're running a tier 3 team, kind of your normal go-tos would be Bomber, maybe, would be Griff or Morg or Deep Brute. Those all come with additional skill tax. What you can do though here is a 6 primary and 1 star, so look for Carla or Rumbelow to kind of feature as a bit more. Zug does well too, but he's kind of just a pseudo big guy. There's some options there, not some super powerful ones, but you've got some great brews. The difficulty with those rosters is that they don't really want 10 skills if you can't stack them. Now 6 primary and 3 secondary means you can stack skills, but unless you're stacking doubles on your big guys, it's not the most important thing in the world. Ogres, however, could be really fun in this one. 6 primary and 3 secondaries means you can just go block, 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 and then, I don't know, guard, or something like that. Guard leader to save up some cash. There's definitely some things you can do with an ogre roster. Snotlings aren't too fussed about skills, so actually taking 4 primary skills for a Snotling roster, taking hackers in there for 2 gives you 2 primary skills. Take Bomber, there you go. Bomber, Hack Phlegm, Snotlings, 1150, no skills. Probably not the best way to do it, but it is definitely achievable. And 6 primary build with Hack Phlegm. It becomes 4 skills plus Hack Phlegm. That's actually pretty fun. Accurate on a Bomber is definitely a route to success. So, basically, 5 tiers, 3 or 4 options within each tier, star player tax to add that granularity. And every roster here has got a great build, but I think you're going to be leaning towards vanilla teams a bit more, and I love that. You're going to get League feel, you're going to get Blood Bowl feel, and that's definitely worth celebrating. But anyway, we're going to wrap up the warm-up, and we'll be back next week with the beginning of the roster videos and our first test stream, well, our first roster test live stream, which should be a lot of fun. Anyway, let me know what you think about the warm-up. Let me know which rosters you want us to hit with first, and we'll put the poll out for the teams on Tuesday as soon as possible. But for now, I'm going to disappear. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blubber content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.